Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Coffee and Open Source, a place to meet some new friends, have some great conversations, and maybe learn something on the way. I'm your host, Isaac Levin. And if you're enjoying the conversations here, be sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching or listening. Also, if you or someone you know like to come on the show and have a chat with me, I'm on social media, and I'm probably where you are. If you go to isaacr11.com, you'll get a list of all of the different handles I have. They're usually the same, but you'll find the places for them, and you can reach out to me there if you like. All right, with that out of the way, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with a friend. I get an opportunity to chat with them occasionally when I'm out in the world speaking at conferences and we happen to be at the same place. But I'm looking forward for another hour-long conversation with my friend Stace Cashmore. Stace, you want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm Stacy Cashmore, Stace to my friends. I am a technical, let me get that right. Wow, brain fog, it's late at night in Europe. Tech Explorer DevOps at a company called Omniplan in Amsterdam, where we write financial advice software. And I love the title. It basically just means that I do what I think is important.
Sure.
So I get a lot of freedom to look around and play with new things.
Yeah.
I've been coding since I was a teenager.
Okay.
I've been doing it professionally since the middle of the 1990s, which makes me feel so old. And yeah, I've been speaking since 2019 and a Microsoft MVP since 2020, which still doesn't feel real to me. And who knows, on July the 15th, maybe it won't be real anymore. But if not, it's been an awesome ride so far.
Yeah, no, I think everybody that's in the MVP community is like actively like putting all of their stuff into the little MVP. So for inside baseball, like for people that care about the Microsoft MVP program, you basically have to provide a list of all the things that you've done to contribute to the community, like every year when you come up for renewal. And some people, like, they don't provide enough information and they get kind of, bounced is not the right way, but the word to say, but like they are no longer the program. So it's kind of a time where people have to do this like inventory of all the things they've done. I will say this. So you're talking about your job title, and it reminded me of something kind of funny. And I don't know if this exists in the Netherlands as it does in the US, but like, so if you work at a bank, the joke is like everybody's a vice president at a bank, right? Like after a certain level, like,
yes.
Or if you're like in consulting, like everybody's an associate director. Like your first job at a consulting company is like associate directors, like, and if you work at other companies, like director is a very important job. So like, I'm curious for you, like, you say you love your job title, but like, does the job title carry the same weight to you, even though it's kind of like it's a very specific title, right? So like how do you feel like in general about a title like that?
I'm kind of on the fence with it. I mean, There's a little bit of a story about how I got the job title that I think is worth sharing. I was working with an architect who, at the time, I was an architect.
Okay.
And they were really playing power games or trying to play power games. So it's, if we're meeting customers, I'd introduce myself, I'm the architect, and he'd introduce himself, the enterprise architect or the chief architect or
okay.
whatever.
Right. Yeah, I see where this is going.
And I spoke to my boss and just went like, is he my boss? Because if he is, that's a problem. That wasn't what I was expecting from this position. Well, he's not your boss. Well, okay, I want a different job title then, because I'm just not interested in playing these games.
Yeah.
And he just went, well, what title do you want? And it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And at my previous company, they had tech scouts. So again, the people with a certain remit for exploration.
Okay.
They had tech scouts for architecture, for databases, that kind of thing. And then, well, I can't steal Tech Scout because that's theirs, but hey, Tech Explorer sounds quite good. And I came up with 3 extra words. I can't remember what the other 2 were, but they were my preference. I'm a firm believer that DevOps isn't a job. It's a thing that you do in your job. So I don't like having DevOps in my job title. But at the same point, whenever I tried out the other 2 titles with people, well, what is that?
Yeah.
And Tech Explorer DevOps, people just accepted it. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, fine, I guess it's that one then. No, it's kind of a double sword. I do love the versatility that it has, but it is also really hard to explain the job that goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just gave up, like, because I imagine, like you, like I have friends or family that are not in tech, and they're just like, oh, what do you do all day? And for a long time, I was like, I build websites, even though I didn't build websites.
Yep.
Right. It's just easy for people to wrap their head around. Now I just say, like, I just do marketing stuff. Like, and then everybody just like, people immediately are like, oh, marketing, like, okay, whatever. I mean,
I just say I'm a software developer. If I'm introducing myself to somebody that's not in tech, what do? I write software.
I see. I struggle with that because, like, the imposter syndrome is like, I've had the fortunate, privilege, like, work at large companies with like engineers or developers that are like way up here, right? And I've never considered myself, and I've been like a software developer or an engineer in my career, but like, I feel like it's like, I just have this imposter syndrome where it's like, like, I don't think I'm very good at that sort of thing. So I try to kind of deviate away from that. That probably speaks more to what
I can see that
my thing is, but I'm glad to hear that you consider yourself a developer, because I think in order to be successful, we'll talk about kind of what you do and all of those things, like outside of your job, or even with your job, like, you kind of have to have like empathy for people that actually write code or they configure systems for a living.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's we have a what is it? Holistic organization at my company. So we have the CEO, and everybody reports to the CEO.
Interesting.
It's a small company, so that's possible. But then we have the different circles and roles within those circles, and people can say whether or not they would like to try different roles. So you can have roles in completely different places as long as you show that you can combine them.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I've always thought about, I don't know if you've ever watched the show For All Mankind. Have you seen that show?
No, I've not seen that one.
You'd probably like it. It's like, it's basically spoiler alert for anybody who's never heard of it. It's like the first episode is like in 1969, like America's going to the moon, and then they lose the race to the moon to the Russians. Like, that's the whole premise for the show. Right. And, there's been other shows where that is like a thing, where like some alternate version of history. But basically this alternate version of history is like the space race never stops. So because America is always chasing Russia, so like everything's accelerated. Like, they go to Mars, they go this thing, right? And there's this one particular season, my wife and I are currently watching the season, where there's like a Elon Musk sort of character, right? Runs like a tech company. It's like space exploration. And he has the same concept where it's like he's a CEO and everybody else is like the same level. And it ends up becoming this thing where like people become sycophants, because like they're all at the same level, and then he's like one level above them. Right. And I think of that, and I'm not saying your company is like that by any means, but like, and maybe this is maybe too like in the weeds about your work, but like how do you triage like what work to do if there's no like corporate structure to an extent, right? It's all just teams like doing work and then figuring out what makes sense from a prioritization standpoint.
Well, we do have the CEO still provides the direction.
Sure.
So this is where we want to go. And then we have a product circle, and they figure out what we want to do with the product in order to fulfill that. And the development circle figure out what we need to fulfill that from product.
Okay.
So you do still have that same flow of work.
Okay.
I sit slightly outside of that, because whilst I do a little bit of that, I also do quite a lot of, this would be fun to try, and seeing what new things I can find that might be useful. And so for my work, it's basically if I see something and it's interesting, I will try it. And if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't, I've learned something. But for the most part, we know what we need to do. We have customers, we have a direction that we want our product to go to. And the idea is it's supposed to be just a much closer collaboration of getting there, rather than trying to prove that you're more than the person next to you.
Sure. Yeah. No.
And we thankfully have a really awesome group of people working there that can work together to do this stuff, and it's really working together.
Yeah. No, I love that. And
It sounds like a Hallmark movie. Obviously, it's not always as perfect as that, but it works most of the time.
well, I mean, I think it's positive to consider your life a Hallmark movie. I think that there's probably some good in that. I know you. I know you well enough to know that like you're a naturally curious person, right? Like, and I think your job kind of goes coattails with that, right? Like the fact that your job,
Absolutely.
it's like, Lewis and Clark, to use an American analogy, like out and discovering the new world, right? Where it's like you find something interesting, and you run with it and see if it's worth sort of investing in, right? Which I think that's a fun job. And I think one of the things
it is absolutely a fun job.
Yeah. And one of the things I'd love to kind of hear from you is like, where do you think that started? Like, when did you realize that you were like a naturally curious person? Like, did you have like the cliche thing, like you took apart remote control cars or you like, no, look, it's funny, but I think
may have dismantled my dad's stereo a couple of times.
Exactly. Right. Like I've told this story 1,000 times, but I'll do it anyway. Right. Like, we didn't grow up with a lot of money when I was growing up. So we got a computer like on layaway, which is like this idea that you make payments and then eventually like you get the thing, right? Like you go to Walmart and you're like, okay, this computer's $500. We'll give $50 or $100 a month. And then eventually we'll get it. Like great deal for Walmart. Not a great deal for the people that are buying it because they're eventually getting something that is outdated by the time they get it. But anyway, so like we get a computer, we get it all set up, and then day 2, like I was curious about how it works, so I took it apart. And I had no experience, right? And I remember my dad seeing it, and he was just like, "Fix this now." And I had to figure it out. Like I had to without access to the internet, without anybody saying like, "Oh no, like this thing needs to go in this thing." Like I figured it out, and it turned on, and I was very like I got that immediate satisfaction of like, oh, this works after I fixed it. And I don't think that has left me my entire life, right? Like when you get to the point where something works and it's because of you, it's very fulfilling.
I had that a few times growing up. Like I said, I did take my dad's radio apart once because it wasn't working as it should do. So it couldn't do any harm. I did manage to get that one back together, but I didn't fix it. But then somebody gave me one. The record player kind of worked, the tape deck kind of worked, but the radio was completely dead. And I took it apart, figured out how the tuner worked. And of course, this is back in the 80s, so we're talking full analog tuning here.
Sure.
The tuner was actually 2 giant chunks of metal that interlinked with each other, and the amount they interlinked is what frequency they would receive.
Okay.
And I managed to get this working by completely bodging it with elastic bands. The only thing that didn't work was the radio dial on the front, so you had to tune it and listen for what station you wanted as opposed to looking for the frequency.
Yeah.
But that's how I got the first stereo in my bedroom. By doing that. My brother was actually the first one to get a computer in the house.
Okay.
And so he got an Atari 800 XL, and he played games on it, and it came with a programming book, and I read through it, and I made it do things. It wasn't amazing software development, but I could make art on the computer with code.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the Commodore 64 was the computer to have. So one Christmas, my parents traded in the Atari for a secondhand Commodore 64. And that's what he got for Christmas. And I used it as much as he did. And then it broke, and he wanted to throw it away. So I ended up fixing it. It was a diode on the motherboard. My dad did some electronics. He was a mechanic, not an electrician, but he was also an amateur radio enthusiast, so he had the soldering iron and all that kind of stuff. So he taught me how to solder, and I fixed the 64, and that became my first computer.
Yeah.
It was harder to code than the Atari, but I managed to do it. And yeah, it was just the same thing. What can I do to make this work? And even stuff like getting games to load. I figured out where the tape head needed to be set for certain tapes.
Sure.
Because I had 2 games, and if you set the tape head up for the height, for those people who were thinking, what is she talking about? In old analog cassette tapes, you could adjust the height of the head to where it was on the film. And I had to adjust that continually between 2 places because my 2 favorite games needed different settings. But again, it was that trial and error. And like you say, at the point where you've got something that doesn't work and you've turned it into something that does work,
Yeah.
it is such an amazing feeling. And like you said, it's never left me. It's I still have that now.
What does your brother think of that? Right. I mean, so they throw something away, or they say, I don't want this because it's broken. And then their younger sibling fixes it. And they have they have it now.
He wanted it back.
Sure, of course. It's his right. Right? It's his right. It's his.
Thankfully, my parents said, you threw it away. It's hers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I don't think he was happy, but he lived with it. I mean, he wanted more of the games than anything else. I'm actually the only person in my family who's really techie, so sure. I can confuse most of them if I start talking about stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he wasn't happy, but he lived with it.
Well, I mean, I think too, like having parents that are like, no, like she did this work. It doesn't matter, right? I think that's a great learning experience for both of you, right? Because you get like that feeling of like, I completed something and I get to own this thing now. And he gets that experience where it's like, maybe like give things a second chance instead of throwing them away, right? So great life lessons. Like kudos to your parents for that.
The weird thing is, he is better, not with the electronics. He doesn't do electronics, but basically working with hands. He's a builder.
Okay.
He does such amazing work. He's so talented, but he wouldn't fix the computer.
Sure.
But yeah, it's his talents lie in a different place. I cannot do the things that he does. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a similar thing, right? So the first time I ever like touched a computer, like I realized that was the only thing that was going to fascinate me. Like I think, and I don't know if you suffer from this too, but like I get bored of things way too fast.
Yeah.
Like I joke with my wife that it's like she's the only person in my entire life that like has interested me more than for like more than 10 minutes. Which I think, I mean, that's a nice thing to say, but also like that says a lot about me. But like the computer was one of those things where it's like it continually fascinated me. And so I realized very quickly, like, okay, computers are the thing. And my younger brother, like, no interest in computers, got into like machinery. So it was like a motorcycle mechanic, like does amazing things, can like look at an engine and just like do all the stuff, right? Without a book, without it, whatever, and can fix small things and do all this stuff. And I look at what he's able to accomplish and I'm like, I could not. Like,
yes.
That's
it exactly.
Yeah. So, with you, like obviously falling in love with technology is a bit different than deciding to pursue a career in technology. Like, when did you realize that like there was a career option in tech?
That would have been when I was about 13, 14.
Okay.
In the UK, you had to pick your GCSEs to decide. It kind of helped you along. In the UK, you have GCSEs at 16, A-levels at 18, and then you can go to university. And I was just basically trying to be pragmatic. It's I didn't grow up in a very well-off area.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to struggle like my parents did.
Yeah.
What can I do? And I just went down my interests, and I loved acting, but the chances of making enough to actually live in acting are slim unless you're very lucky.
Sure. Yeah.
I adore driving. But kind of the same thing. To make money at that, you've got to be exceedingly lucky and also have rich parents to get you into the sport.
Sure. Like sport driving? Like you
and
liked racing cars or whatever, driving fast?
I like
Or
racing.
sure.
It's I am a little bit of a hooligan behind the wheel on a racetrack. It's
Okay.
up until I was about 36, 37, I was generally the quickest out of my my friends group. I'm not naturally a competitive person,
Oh,
but
interesting.
put me in a go-kart and you better
Oh,
believe that I get competitive.
all right. Random question
That
for
is
you.
my thing.
Have you ever so they have them in the US, and I'm guessing they probably have some in Europe, right? Where you can go to like a speed track and you can drive like a very nice
Yeah.
car, right? Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never done that just because as much as I'd like to drive the nice car, the cost for the experience
Yeah.
is kind of ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And with my ADHD, I also have autobiographical memory issues.
Mm,
So once the experience is over, the experience is over.
yeah.
It's not, I know a friend of mine put it perfectly the other day. We were talking about this. When he goes on holiday, when he does something nice, that stays with him for weeks or months, and he can always look back on it.
Yeah.
And when I go on holiday or do something nice and it ends, it's ended.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
very hard for me to go back and actually do it. And so spending all of that money to drive a nice car, whilst it would be very, very cool, I think the fact that I would know that the second I get out that it's over would
Yeah.
spoil it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned
I have taken my car on a racetrack.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's cool.
That was cool. That was a lot of fun.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was reading this article just a couple weeks ago about how certain neurodivergent people, they have this thing. I can't remember exactly what it's called, and maybe it's similar to what you're referring to, where it's it's basically like a dissociation disorder, where you live your life and everything's fine, but when you try to recall memories, there's no emotion attached to memories. So basically, yeah. So somebody will remind you oh, do you remember when we went to Disneyland when we were 12? And you can say, yeah, I kind of recall that, but I don't remember a lot of the details, or maybe I remember a very small detail. And I guess people that don't have some of those neurodivergent things, they can recall emotions, they can recall exact times or things they did, but there are some people that they don't have that immediate recollection, and they don't have the emotional attachment to it. And I was thinking about this, I don't have there's a lot I don't know if you've ever had this where somebody will ask you oh, tell me about when you were a kid, and I don't have stories to pull from. I have a couple of small things, but I don't have I don't have visceral memories as a child unless I'm reminded about them.
No.
And it's my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. It's
exactly that.
Yeah.
It's a few years ago I had EMDR for CPTSD.
Sure.
And generally for EMDR, you have to work off of a memory.
Yeah.
But for me, we worked out a different protocol, and we actually went just from groups of experiences, because individual memories just didn't exist. It's I know when I was unhappy, I know when I was teased and it made me feel really bad. I know that, but if you ask me to go back to an individual point, I can't.
Yeah.
So instead, we went back to the whole deal with emotion of childhood, as opposed to dealing with one specific memory.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and this isn't a therapy podcast, but I really appreciate this part of this type of conversation. I think too, especially if you have some form like of traumatic experience or trauma. I think that you're always trying to work against that to like
Yeah.
have like some purpose, right? Like, because my thing has always been like, I just want my kids to like have a better experience than I did, right? Like that cliche thing. Or
Yeah.
even to the effect where I want to experience more because I didn't get a lot of opportunities to experience things when I was growing up. So like I want to experience more. Like, so speaking is like, oh, I get to travel and I get to go to these crazy places. And sometimes I bring my family with me. Like you've met my wife and kids, right? So like, it's one of those things where we're constantly chasing like the thing that makes like little Stacy or little Isaac like feel good,
Yeah.
right? As adults. And
Yeah.
it's a fascinating conversation because we fortunately have an ability to somewhat like fulfill some of those things, right? Right. Like we were talking before we got started about like, the feeling of like giving back or the feeling to like educate people, but like how there's like a very fine line when you're in this world of like being a quote unquote influencer. Not to say that either of us are influencers, but let's just say we are. Where people care about what you say. And like there's this thin line between like giving back, doing good things, and like I'm doing this for attention. And I mean, I can only speak for myself, but like getting attention would make like little Isaac like the happiest person on earth, right? Like positive reinforced attention.
That's it. It's the positive, not being laughed at, not being ridiculed, but actually being able to stand there and feel like it's a good thing.
Yeah. Like people laughing at you, but just because you're saying something that's funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy with that. If I stand on stage, I try and use self-depreciating humor all the time, just because I know when I do things wrong on stage, and you know what? Let's just laugh about it together, and that's just fun.
Yeah, this is where I struggle. This is what I struggle with. Yeah, I struggle with this because my personality is very self-deprecating. I don't know if it's because of what we were talking about or it's like inflated ego and trying to work against that, whatever, right? But as you well know, the American sense of humor is substantially different than like everywhere else in the world sense of humor, right? So like if I'm in Europe or if I'm anywhere else in the world, I literally have to start my sessions off with like, just so you know, there'll be some jokes in here and they're probably not funny because you don't get it because you don't have like the American experience, right? And I remember that like this is a story, and I imagine you probably have similar stories, right? My first international talk I did was in Copenhagen, right? And I went to this conference and it was great. I did my talk. It's one of those conferences that was in a theater, so there's lots of people in there. And everybody's sitting there with like their hands folded and their hands are just on their lap, and everybody's like very stoic, right? And I'm doing my thing. I'm like telling jokes. I'm being stupid, like, and everybody's just kind of like watching. And then at the end, like I get like this very like polite clap. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, that was awful. Like everybody hated that, right? And I was talking to my friend who's Danish afterwards, and he said, oh, that's just Danes. Like we don't show emotion at all. And I was just,
I've heard that about the Swedes too. Yes.
And it's as somebody who had never like, I didn't travel internationally growing up. I didn't have very many opportunities to talk with people that aren't American. I was like, I was shocked when somebody said like, oh, like they're just like that. Because Americans are like the antithesis of that, right? We let you know our opinions every single time.
Yeah, it's similar experience to you only with the UK. So I left the UK twice before I emigrated to the Netherlands. But what I learned after I emigrated to the Netherlands, because all I'd had is those UK experiences, was tremendous. But yeah, even then, so my first ever talk was at Sweetuk in Stockholm, which you know. And it was an experience. Thankfully, there were enough speakers who were looking after me from the speaker room in the audience.
Sure,
that I could like look at and I could get the feedback from them. I was flying just because I loved it so much. I never expected to. But yeah, I've been in places where you get like a lot of applause, and I've been in places where you get a little bit of applause.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I can use sarcasm in a way that I don't understand it that well, but I can use sarcasm in a way that apparently could confuse people.
Yeah, sarcasm is dangerous. Like I've realized as being a fairly sarcastic person that sarcasm is kind of like a chainsaw. It works very, very good in very specific points of time, but used for everything is very damaging. Like, the amount of times that I've had to kind of like pseudo apologize for sarcasm, even though I was like, there's no malcontent or ill content with it, is way too damn high. Right. And
yes.
And especially when you're dealing with other demographics or other cultures, like sometimes like people like sarcasm is like the opposite of a lot of cultures, because a lot of cultures like very direct, and sarcasm is like naturally like very indirect, because you're just like you're pointing the attention away from what you're saying to, like, I don't know, ease the tension or whatever it is, right? And I've realized that like I have to be less sarcastic around certain types of people, because some people just don't respond well to sarcasm. And that's outside of like I've tried to refrain completely from using sarcasm like via text communicate or asynchronous communication, because
I use the sarcasm text.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, that is so dangerous.
Yeah. The amount of times that I'll say something that's kind of stupid, like via text message, and somebody will respond back with like, "What do you mean by that?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I have to fix this now." So instead of like moving on with my life, I have to play damage control because I said some sentence that can be considered very offensive is not the right word. I'm going to use the word like very offensive when it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, right? So at a particular point in your career, like you kind of give your history about like when you started to do community work and all of that. So what do you think do you remember a seminal moment? Like we were just talking about, do you remember things? And you said, not really. And I'm going to ask you to remember something because that's the kind of person I am. Do you have any?
And there's the sarcasm.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that was sarcasm or just me not knowing what to say. Do you remember like anything that was in your history of like the goal or want to educate or like help people get to the level that they want to be? Like, was there something like seminal moment for you, or you're just I like talking to people and I like learning, so why not put those things together?
The actual I like talking to people was not on my cards.
Sure.
That was a complete surprise for me. I wasn't expecting it. I always wanted to be an actor when I was growing up, but as an adult, it terrified me. I do like learning stuff, and throughout my career, I have managed to try and help the junior developers appreciate who they are.
Sure.
Yeah. And whether that is teaching them technical things, whether that is teaching them how life gets in the way of technical things, and how to be pragmatic, or whether it's just trying to get them to have the confidence to do the stuff that they can do.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed doing that side of things.
Yeah.
So I think once I was actually convinced to try speaking and I figured out that I liked it, it was just a natural click. It's like, you know what? I want to do this again. It was so much fun to stand up there. And if I can get somebody interested in something, if I can get somebody to try something that maybe they wouldn't have tried, and make their life better, then it's worth it. Yeah. If I can help one person in a room out of 100, then for me, that is absolutely worth it, because I have made somebody's life better. Yeah. And that's just the best feeling in the world. Yeah. And, because of your job, you have an opportunity to, pay attention to like the latest thing or the sexy thing that's out in the world. Like,
with that, like your goal is always to take what you're learning and give it back, whether it's to your company or to the people out in the community. Like, how do you pay attention? Like, I've asked tens of people this over the last few months. It's like there's too much things to pay attention to. So for Stace, how do you pay attention to like things that matter to you, or are you just a vacuum and you can suck in all of it and take in all of that information?
I wish I was the vacuum, but I'm not. That is my imposter syndrome. It took me a long time to realize that I'm a Microsoft MVP. I use Azure. I don't know Azure.
Sure.
And it took me a long time to realize that nobody knows Azure. Everybody knows their bit of Azure because it's way too big to do that. And the thing that I've always tried to do is just look at what I'm trying to do with a personal project. So the book that I wrote came from wanting to build a website and learning about static web apps. It's like, wow, this could be cool.
Yeah.
And so I went all in, and that led to the book. I'm currently doing a similar thing with container apps. And it's like, okay, so how can we take this to the next level? What can we do with it? Is it useful for work? And is it going to interest me?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I try and pick it up. It's seeing the things that come past, and some of them will just kind of like naturally get me excited. And it's like, okay, that I need to learn more about.
Yeah, I see. I'm a similar way. I'm also very contrarian with things too. Like I need to like I think similar to you where I have to actually see it in action, like myself. Like I got to go and I got to do the thing. And I think especially now in this world where like everything is like, oh, hit a prompt and then hit enter, right? There is, at least to me, like a little bit of the joy of tinkering has kind of started to vanish. And I've started to be far more interested in things that are outside of like my level of interest. Like, I've been I've been a bit more interested in like learning, like you're talking about Azure, like learning like other areas of building applications that I've never really touched in the past. Because I think building applications right now, it's in this weird state where it's like, okay, just, come up with a really cool prompt and to enter. And I know that's over summarizing it, but I mean, so for you,
but there's too many people that don't realize that, and I think that is the problem.
Sure, yeah, go like explain that a little bit. What like your thought process around why you think that's kind of a problem?
I think one thing, I've spoken to too many people who just think that, hey, I can just do this and it works. And I've seen too many tools written by people that it's a start and it's an awesome idea. But actually not having the layer of knowledge there to bring it to proper fruition makes it dangerous. I've been around a while. To me, it's coding with a prompt is kind of like making a full application using Word or Excel and Visual Basic for applications.
Well, I mean, we used to do that with Dreamweaver, right?
Yep.
We used to do that with Dreamweaver.
We used to do that, and but I've seen some real nightmares with it in the past as well, and I've seen some real nightmares that one of the companies I work for, it's like 100,000 people around the world, and one department of that with thousands of people relied on an Excel sheet on an individual person's machine. And it was all the shadow IT, of course, because it wasn't an official thing. But without that, there was serious trouble. And I think the problem that we might get, or that we are going to get, is the same thing with AI. It's sure, you can write something and you can make yourself a little AI app and it can be useful. But do you actually know what you've exposed? Do you know when it goes wrong? Do you know what happens when somebody else starts to use it? And it's, I think Scott Hanselman had a phrase, if I can paraphrase him, always know the metal a layer below the magic you're using.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's missing with a lot of AI apps.
Sure.
So and that's actually, we were talking before we started about me starting streaming again now that I'm feeling a little bit healthier. And I spent 6 months racking my brain over what to do because I don't want to be somebody who goes on stream and prompts. There are people that do that and they can do it well. I am not one of them. It doesn't interest me, and I don't think I'm going to teach people while doing that. So that's not happening. What I'm
Yeah.
going to do instead is focus on that layer beneath. So I'm going to build an application to manage my books because I have a large book collection.
Sure.
And I'm going to build it by hand using .NET, using some type of front end, not sure what it's going to be yet, using various different Azure systems to hook it all together and make it react to users. And I'm not going to use AI. I'm going to focus on the layer beneath the magic so that hopefully people can still take that look at the layer below and check that what their AI prompt is giving them isn't just rubbish.
Yeah, it's like, I think the problem that I have with, like, I think that Scott quote is pretty solid. Like the layer below the magic, or one layer below what you're working on. I think that's a really valid, or a very interesting viewpoint. My challenge is that, like, what is below, like, the prompt? Because obviously all the way at the bottom is like physics, right? Like, and then it's like, okay, so what's on top of the physics? This and this and this. And I think, we've got to the level where there's so much abstraction on top of, like, what, like, of an LLM specifically, that, do we care? Do we care about what an LLM is? Do we care about how GPT transformers work? Do we care about all these things, right? Because at the end of the day, like, do we just care about, like, how a tool wraps an LLM, right? Is that like the layer below, like how actually? Yeah.
What I mean for the layer below, I mean, there's an interesting one that I'll get back to in a minute for that question. But what I mean specifically by the layer below is if you're using an LLM to code,
okay,
and it just spits out 10, 15,000 lines of code.
Yes.
That's dangerous.
Yes, I agree.
And I think if it's spitting out 10, 15,000 lines of code, the chances are it's not doing what you think it does anyway, because
probably not. No.
That's a lot of code for a prompt. So for me, it's more kind of when I wrote in assembly at university, understanding the machine code and how the chips operated was important.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I learned the hard way because I fried one of our test boards at university because rather than making it tick every 16th of a second, I made it tick 50,000 times a second or something. The Apparently, it really didn't like that. Wasn't the only person to make that mistake.
Sure.
As you go up through the layers, that layer of abstraction changes. So I'm a .NET developer by trade. I want to make sure that I am not causing race conditions. I want to make sure, and this is one that I think too many people miss, that I don't have a memory leak. Because just because you have a garbage collector doesn't mean you don't have leaks. It just means they're hidden from you more nicely. So we have that level of understanding. So it's what's the other good one? Oh, VB. When I was coding in VB, it was still the point where the pipelines to the processor had a huge impact in performance. And you could actually tune your code by making sure that your if statements were true more than they were false, even if it meant slightly unreadable code.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when it went false, it had to clear the pipeline and then it had to put the new code through. And you would get like 16 no-ops each time it went wrong, which for an individual if statement's not a problem. If you're doing thousands or tens of thousands of them, it is. These days, that's gone. You can do your if statements however you want. The compiler will make you nice code underneath. You can make it readable to yourself to a certain degree that most people need. Only if you're really looking at major performance apps do you need to start worrying about that. But you still need to worry about, am I holding on to references of objects? Because whilst a garbage collector might collect it, if it doesn't know that it can, it won't. And so you get memory leaks. Now that we're using LLMs, I think it's more important to be able to look at that code and make sure the code makes sense and it's not doing weird things that you don't understand. Having 2 layers of knowledge is still brilliant, but I think at least have that layer of knowledge underneath. Know the language that you're writing or syntax in general enough that you can spot when bad code is being created.
Yeah, I agree. I also, I've been advising people to basically add constraints around the code that you generate. Because I think that you're kind of alluding to this a little bit, right? Where it's like the more code that gets generated, the harder it is for you to understand what's going on. So instead of like, you know, a giant prompt that has like, you know, create me this huge feature that touches all these different files and do all that. It's like, okay. And this is going to the kind of next thing that I want to talk about before we wrap up. It's like, you know, you want to be very mindful about what you send to the prompt, right? What you send to the model, right? Because every time you go to the model, it costs money, blah, 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 right? So like you be very deliberate what you're asking, but also have it do small things for you. And I've started to kind of do a lot of that like locally with local models. Like, okay, I want a method refactored or I want some small CSS things to be changed. That's done locally. And then if I need something that I know for a fact is going to require like more thought, I'll use, you know, a foundational model. And, you know, one of the things I'm curious to hear from you as we start to wrap up, it's like, you know, this stuff isn't cheap, right? And some people have the luxury to, you know, work at companies where they get unlimited access to, you know, Anthropic and OpenAI and GitHub Copilot and all that. But other people, like they have to be very mindful. So like when you're out in the world and you're talking about AI with people, like which approach do you typically take? Is it like try to be as thoughtful as possible when you're using these things, or do you have a different approach?
The approach that I try and use, it's kind of like twofold. I think number one is before you go to any AI, you need to know what problem you're solving.
Yes.
And I think that is something that I'm not going to say that we're missing it because of AI, because you and I both know we miss it in IT anyway. It's, you know, feature rather than what problem are we solving.
Yeah.
Is a long-standing issue. The problem with AI is, we have people bragging that they're writing 37,000 lines of code a day. And it's like, well, awesome, but what problem are you solving? Lines of code has never been a good metric in IT. And you should be much more interested in what problem you're solving and whether or not you're actually providing value than you can do 5 features in a day. So then that is like the first one. Just before you spend any money, are you spending it on the right thing? And is it worth spending the money on?
Yeah.
Not that you shouldn't do that with general software development, but the costs hit you an awful lot faster these days. And the other one is I try and make sure that I have really good guide rails. So I actually have a 3-step process that I use for coding these days at work. We have a Claude project with various skills that helps us go from the problem we think we're solving to hypothesizing between ideas to picking the best one, and then working that all the way down to getting a very specific prompt for an atomic piece of either technical or functional behavior. So you don't want it too small that it's just like part of a bigger technical change or part of a bigger functional change, but you don't want to do everything at once.
Sure.
And by using that workflow, it keeps us thinking. A colleague of mine who started doing it with me, he has said, he is getting tired because he is having to think all of the time when using this AI. And how rarely do you think that? I love that comment from him.
Yeah.
Once we have this prompt, then what we do, we have, I made about 8 or 9 different agents, each with their own speciality, as I'm sure loads of people have done.
Sure.
I name mine after the Clone Wars because I'm a geek.
Why not? Of course, why not?
Yeah. And I basically feed the prompt in, and those agents using OpenSpec come up with a design, a plan. Then they do TDD, which super important in AI development, I think. It's give your agents a hard stop point. Not we think this is working now and then you run it and it does nothing of the sort. And not it runs for hours because it doesn't know when to stop. The first thing it does is give me unit tests that fail. And the instructions are it can scaffold enough to compile, but no code should be in there for a unit test specifically.
Okay.
Then I look over that and make sure those tests are reasonable. Then an agent builds it, checks all the tests are green. I will manually test it to make sure that, okay, did I do the right things? And then I have 3 more agents. One of them rechecks all the unit tests, make sure that they're reasonable, and also runs mutation testing over them to make sure that there's no gaps that are missing. One of them documents the change, which is both useful for human readers and for the AI the next time around, because it has documentation that AI can read, which saves you so much time and money. And then I have Hondo being his annoying, roguish self, being a little bit kind of like, how do you say that? Being a little bit prissy with his review whilst trying to be nice to you. And I found that, I'm still burning tokens. I'm sure I can refine this and burn less. But what I have found is the problems that I solve and the value that I produce are 10 times what it was when I was just trying to write a prompt to generate code. Going through this whole process, it means that you start from a point of, this person has that problem. If I do this, I might solve their problem, and then I can implement that solution and check it at the end. Is this what I needed? And like you say, do it in small enough chunks so that if you go wrong, it's a very small going wrong and you can easily step back to the previous place.
I'm gonna, so after the show,
I don't know if I went off on a complete tangent there.
So
or if
I'm going to, so after the show, I'm going to basically, I'm gonna obviously want to listen to this back. Like, I'm gonna document that because I think that we talk a lot about like figuring out ways to properly like stack different responsibilities of agents, right? And I think that, good, bad, or different, I think a lot of people just kind of assume that we all know what we're doing with these things. But being very methodical, it's like, okay, well, before I even create this new thing, I want test cases that fail, right? Like that's a TDD principle, like that's a thing. But like when we're building software, like obviously TDD is very, very important, but a lot of people just start writing code and then they get the tests. Like at some point they start building tests. So the idea that tests are done first and then the code is written is great, like from an AI like agent perspective. Like Gerald from the .NET team. He was telling me like what the Maui team does, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. So whenever they have like a code review, they basically what they do is they have the unit test run successfully in the code review, like like during the PR process, and then they remove the code that they added to the feature, like in the actual PR. They run the test again to make sure the tests fail, and then they add the code back and then run the test again. So they basically run tests 3 times. like as a part of that, and they're using like get checkout to basically like control the code that's actually being reviewed or that's being the tests are being ran against it. And basically that whole process is to basically say like, do the tests actually like get affected when the code is there or not there as a part of the PR review process.
And that's what I use the Striker test for, the mutation test.
Yeah.
Do you know Striker? Do you know mutation testing?
Yeah, no mutation testing. Yeah, I just thought it was very quaint that they're doing that like in like a GitHub runner as a part of the PR process. I thought that like instead of just doing it locally, which is what a lot of people do in this particular space.
Yeah, it's it is a very safe way of doing it to make sure that it's there, and I'm sure that even human written code could probably do with some of that too.
Oh, sure. I mean, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is I think we're going to go back to some place where we are writing like so AI like agents are still going to be there to write a lot of code for us, but we're also going to write substantial amount of code still as well. I think that we're going to be in this space.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be like some symbiotic relationship between I'm writing code and an agent is kind of running in the side to like either review the code for me as I write it or, you know, come up with recommendations about particular things like on the fly, like a very like it's going to be more interactive. It's
going to be pair programming, but with a robot.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I think that the eventuality of this is going to get, right? And I had this thought and I just lost it. But I think that what's going to end up happening is we're going to have this relationship, and I think that because of that, we need to pay substantially more attention to the code that we write as humans, right? Because I think humans were very guilty of just like throwing code out there and like seeing if it works. And I think that if you were to have like something that's working with you that doesn't have nuance, it's going to be substantially challenging for that like relationship's not the right word, but like that relationship to be effective, right? So because of that, like the tools have to get better. We need to be a bit more thoughtful as we write code, and then explaining like what our desired output is. Like these are things that like, I don't know if you learned this in school, but like nobody ever taught me like how to properly define like the inputs to something and be able to accurately review the outputs. Like that wasn't a part of computer science curriculums or information systems curriculums, right? Like that's something that you learn like during the work, quote unquote, right? And it's like the most important part of the job. It always has been, but it's even substantially more important now.
Absolutely. It's the testing is oh, okay, my head's gone blank now.
We must be running out of time.
It's just knowing what you need to do will always be the most important thing. If you are running at 100 miles an hour, then it doesn't matter if you don't know where you're running to. It's speed versus velocity. You can run in a circle at 100 miles an hour, or you can run toward destination at 100 miles an hour. And we can run faster and faster and faster now. And if you don't know where you're going, then you're just going to make a big mess.
Yeah. I like that analogy, like the speed, because I think now we're in this world. I was actually talking with somebody about this, like the current like software development lifecycle is like forever broken. And we need to come up with kind of a new infinity loop to define how we ship software, right? Because there was always an assumption that like you needed time to write code or to generate output. And now that time is like as close to zero as possible, right? And what I'm seeing a lot of companies still do is they're plugging AI into their like their current SDLC, and then the bottleneck is just shifted from, okay, we have to wait for code to be generated. Now we have to wait for code review and, cab testing or integration testing or testing in other environments. Like that is being slowed down because there's a backlog of code that needs to be tested or needs to be reviewed properly. And some companies are figuring it out, but some aren't.
We really need to shift this left. I mean, that's another thing. The whole shift left movement has been around for an age. But it is getting super important. I think one, for the quality of the code that you get out. If you don't shift left, then you have issues.
Yeah.
And it goes for the slowing down after the fact as well. It's, if you haven't tested what you've produced, and you can produce 37,000 lines of code a day, all that's going to happen is you're going to have 37,000 lines of code that are either untested in production, or they're going to be waiting for somebody to test them. And every time you renew those, you've got to run all of your tests again.
Yeah.
We need to get the pipeline in the right order for this to make sense.
Yeah, I very much agree. And I'm looking forward to, because I think what's great about this time right now is that people are motivated is not the right word, but people are inspired to build things that they would never build before. And a part of that are people building tools that I would never, like, why would I use this tool ever? Oh, well, I never thought I would need this tool, but now I have access to this tool. I'm going to use it, right? And I think that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to people continually to iterate on how this space is going to affect software development and the life cycle around it, but how it benefits it from a positive. Because right now, I think a lot of the marketing and a lot of the sentiment is like it's kind of breaking software deployment and development, because engineers have anxiety and the code quality isn't where it needs to be. But I only see that like this is the first wave, and things are rough because we're kind of like in the Wild West, to use like a really dumb analogy, right? And then eventually we build government out in the Wild West, right? And regulation happens and control happens and standards happen. And then eventually we get to the part where we have civilized society. And I'm looking forward to civilized society in this new world.
It is a groundbreaking shift. It is happening, and there's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, all the complaints that I have about people writing stuff that they don't know, I'm not trying to be gatekeepy. It's awesome that people can do this. Just please make sure what you're doing is safe.
Sure.
But it is changing so much. And we've had a few of these shifts over my career. And I think this is probably the most seismic. And we just need to make sure that we do it in the right way so that we can get something out of it rather than just having the feature factories.
Yeah.
It's the coding was never the biggest bottleneck. It took time, but it's never the biggest bottleneck. And now that we don't have that bottleneck, if you do it right, I hope that we can spend time on the things that are actually going to be genuinely groundbreaking for the people using the software. I do think that the days of the basement dwelling, pizza eating developer is gone. Because I think that is where AI is going to sit. But then software development in Med has always been about solving problems.
Yeah.
So you don't need to touch code to solve problems. I love coding, but you don't need to touch code to solve problems. You need to think about the problem that you're solving. The code is the tool. It's not the means to the end. And I think that we can do some cool stuff with this. I like to think of myself as an AI realist. I hate some sides of it. There's some stuff that it does really well.
Yeah.
And amplifying the good and stopping the bad is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, no, I'm very fascinated to see what this world looks like. And with that, like, I want to be, respectful of the fact that it's getting late over there in the Netherlands. Stace, this has been great. It's been, I feel like we had like two completely different conversations. We had this whole, mental health sort of like therapy session at the beginning, and then we kind of transitioned to technology, and I really loved it. And I want to thank you so much for being so open and having just a great conversation with me. And, for anybody
likewise. This has been so much fun.
Yeah. And for anybody who isn't following Stace, I highly recommend, I think one of the places to find you is probably start at your website and go from there. So,
Stacy-clouds.net.
Yeah. Stacy-clouds.net. And from there, there's be some links to different social handles, and I'll also put some links to some places that you're at. in the show notes for this as well. But I highly recommend it because, we didn't even talk about like the Twitch streaming stuff, which I wanted to talk about too. So, we're going to have you on at some point in the future to talk about all of that and your journey kind of back to streaming, which I think has been pretty awesome. Before we...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and have that talk later on.
Yeah. Before we sign off, my friend, like, do you have any parting words or things before we wrap up?
I think the only one that I'd really like to say, especially in the world as it is at the moment, is just, be nice to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Being nice to each other is like, I can't say anything against the idea of just being nice to each other, because it goes everywhere. It goes across technology. It goes across life. And I tell people, just like, live with empathy and you'll get a long way. So
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's we are in a really weird place in the world with AI, with other things. Be nice to each other.
Yeah.
It's the only way that it's going to get better.
Excellent. Well, again, Stacy, I want to thank you so much for your time here. It's been great to chat with you. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to see each other in the future.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody that was watching the show live. Thank you so much. I want to thank the people that are listening to this in the future. And if you like this episode, share it with your friends, because I got something out of it, so I'm hoping other people get something out of it too. My name's Isaac Levin. This has been Coffee and Open Source, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. From my friend Stacy, take care.
Bye-bye.